Ladies and gentlemen.
You having a nightmare? What if it's true?
Ladies and gentlemen.
Alan, it's a possibility, isn't it?
The very word secrecy is repugnant.
Secrets.
In a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers,
constant, extreme danger,
which are cited to justify it. Even today, there is little value in opposing the threat of a closed society by imitating its arbitrary restrictions. Even today, there is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it. And there is very grave danger,
extreme danger,
that an announced need for increased security.
What the hell is going on? This is Conspiracy Queries with Alan Park.
Will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment. That I do not intend to permit to the extent that it's in my control.
You're crazy.
And no official, high or low, civilian or military, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes.
Isn't the Pentagon suspicious that all the buildings would blow up?
Or to withhold from the press and the public
I think you're just looking at things for the first time.
the facts they deserve to know.
You've had your whole fucking life to think things over. What good's a few minutes more gonna do you now?
The facts they deserve to know. They deserve to know. Deserve to know. Deserve to know. Facts they deserve to know.
Those who have achieved an elevated existence, raise your fists.
Okay. Hey. Thanks for tuning in. Welcome to Conspiracy Queries with Alan Park. These are the Conspiracy Queries, and I am the Alan Park. Still get to be here. At long last, episode 95. At the same time, it's episode 23 of Green Crush. And it's been a long time coming. I'm sure folks who listen to Green Crush are wondering what the hell is going on. I know that we got some information from some people who have been asking about when are we going to do this show again? And to them I say I never really stopped. I was just doing research. Some of that involved lying on a gurney. So welcome to the show. Green Crush 23 is Conspiracy Queries number 95. And from now on, we're going to put those two things together. So it's 23.95 right now, 24.96 next week, etc. As long as I can do it. And, yeah, here we go. I've been away. Folks, Conspiracy Query folks, I've been away. Because, as I said on some of the more shows near the end of the run and of my run, I wasn't able to do it anymore. So, and the answer to that reason is cancer, stage 4. Fully metastasized. I just withered away to a discount wheelchair and a cane to get around. Not too fun. And all through 2013, folks, none of the doctor's appointments, none of the tests that they chose to run were showing me what was wrong until November, the end of the year. until the emergency ward on an extremely cold day where 3 to 4 hours I waited for another doctor, an emergency room doctor, to tell me cancer. Aggressive advanced stage 4 prostate cancer that had already spread through my blood, destroying my prostate, cinching off my urethra just as the wizened cork that it had died off to be a cork, stopping the flow, enlarging my bladder, itself oddly unaffected by the cancerous state of my prostate. A bladder barely able to empty itself, not without painfully induced effort and force. Just a test tube squirt at a time for some normal brief relief. I got all kinds of jokes about this, but not right now, because it hurt to stand up, and it hurt to sit down, and it hurt to be awake. My bones all year, lucky 2013, literally fizzing away like slow-motion Alka-Seltzer in ginger ale. Spectacular slow motion. And I guess with that, there goes any sponsorship opportunity for this show from Alka-Seltzer, Schweppes, or Canada Dry. Stage 4. Too late for chemotherapy. Too late for surgery or radiation, I was told. Stage 4 cancer. No choices, just a ticking clock with 10 to 12 months left on it. The last 5 or 6 were going to be quite ugly, I was told. I was told in this particular situation there was nothing they could do. Nothing they could do to help me live. Rather, they offered me a palliative drug to help me, and this is a quote, ease on out. Yeah. Do I really look like a person that would ease on out? There must be some facts out there, I thought to myself. There must be some facts out there. And I asked my doctor, so what you're saying is there's nothing else that can be done? No, he said, in fact, telling people this is one of the worst parts of my job. Oh, wow, Doc. Sorry to mess up your day. Seems like a million years ago, and for cannabis awareness and availability in Canada, it certainly was. And on Conspiracy Queries, I asked questions about situations that are not fully resolved in my mind. That was my show. But the situation of cancer put serious questions in my mind, nowhere near resolved. And this was my life. And you could call it denial if you need to, but I didn't believe my doctor. And I found out that the answer to cancer, for me, and many more anyway, is in the cancer. The answer is in the cancer, see? See? Answer. C-ancer. Cancer. Like so many of our problems, the solution was inside the problem. And I told everybody, the kind folks listening to my show over a couple of years, that it was on the internet, and it was on Sirius XM, that I couldn't really do it anymore. And I didn't tell them that I was told that that might be permanent. And I started using cannabis oil. So thanks, Google. Thank you, Rick Simpson. Thank you, fellow Canadian Rick Simpson, who isn't allowed to live in Canada anymore for some reason. I still need to talk to him. Thank you, good sir. And I started to feel better. And I started to learn more about cannabis. And the more I learned, the more I realized you can't really talk about cannabis without talking about conspiracy. Cannabis awareness and conspiracy knowledge are encompassed and intertwined. And that's why, here on Green Crush, That's all it ever was. Green Crush. The show we created, 3 people, to share this knowledge, for others to have benefit from. Others who might have been told there's no medical option for you. According to this fellow with all the degrees, all of the accolades and the research behind him, in great study of mainstream medicine. Green Crush was actually just a conspiracy queries episode that went down a path. A topic that I had to spend more time on than just one show like I used to do. I had to spend my life on it. And I got it back, not the same one, but it's more interesting anyway. I get to live. It was a conspiracy query the whole time. How do I get to live? Why can't I find out what can save my life when I'm being told there's no way to do that? It's kind of curious, because my life was on the line. And I found out that this topic that would save my life, cannabis, was really being shown a door. Because I'd been shown the door a few times. Shown door number 1, chemo, door number 2, surgery, door number 3, radiation, and none of them were going to let me in. None of them were going to change my life. So for those of you concerned that I don't listen to my doctor and I'm being irresponsible, I don't know how to tell you that's not true at all. I listened to everything he said. And what he said was, you're fucked. Pack your bags. You're going to cross to the other side. Take care of your financial details. Get ready to wrap up your life. You just turned 50. Now you're going to get the hell out of here. I wasn't ready for that. Didn't want to do that at all. So my research showed me there was another door number 4. Because the big 3 doors are closed. You go down door number 4, which was perfect for me because I had stage 4 cancer anyway. And I probably still do. Or I don't. They can't find it, but it's there. But they won't tell me I don't have it. But they can't seem to notice where it is. I get the blood tests all the time, seem to be completely unaffected by this thing. They won't take away my status as a stage 4 cancer guy. So I'm going to use it. Where's my parking pass? Where is my parking pass? So what's to stop you from giving it a try if you're told you're going to die? Cannabis. Blocked by conspiracy. So let's crush some of the things that are in the way. And it's episode 23 of Green Crush. And it's episode 95 of Conspiracy Queries. You're listening to Green Crush Conspiracy Queries with Alan Park. Welcome and thank you. And one of the biggest comforts I got from going through this ride was I knew there was no way I was going to be the only person going through this. This silent hell. So today, as my guest, we have another of the champions on board all the way from Ireland. Our guest, Vera Toomey, will be telling about how she saved her daughter's life. And how did she do that? Well, she just had to take on the Irish government, that's all. You know, the government. A bunch of people sitting around making up laws. Repressive laws a lot of times. Non-fact-based laws all the time. Sometimes it's okay. But not when they're telling you you can't use a plant to save your life. So thanks to Vera Toomey, her little daughter Ava is fantastically well right now compared to her situation before. The poor darling suffering from seizures at a regular rate that Vera, her mother, will share with us. Thankfully, she's back in Ireland now, having spent a lot of time in Europe where they allowed her to use the cannabis and saw the results and sent her home to Ireland with that lovely oil. And Vera's got some stories about that as well. She couldn't even bring it into the country, even though it was properly prescribed, given to her. So Vera Toomey, thanks for coming on. And if you're in the government right now and you're some kind of a minister or on a minister's team, you know, the real people that read the emails, consider this broadcasting effort as a raising of my fist. Okay, so that's what we're doing on this show, is we are blowing away some of the bullshit a little bit at a time. Takes a while. We have 22 episodes behind us in order, from 1 to 22. Then we have a Christmas and New Year's Eve show. And if you're sick with cancer or some other kind of debilitating disease, and you've not tried this and you've not heard of this and your doctors scoff at this, hey, I know it's a bit of a stigma sometimes. I certainly go through it. But it's better to go through a stigma while you're alive than not to go through one like a nice little boy that did all his chemo and medicines and now he's dead. Now, like I said, I wasn't offered that. Wasn't offered that myself, so it's okay. That's how I found out about this. I'm pretty sure that if I knew about it, that I was only stage 1 or 2, I might have tried chemo. You know, I might have done that. I can't say I wouldn't have. I believed that it didn't work. I used to make jokes about it as a comedian. Yeah, I used to make jokes about chemotherapy and pharma in general. But maybe when my ass was in the sling, I might have gone there, huh? Can't really know that. I would like to think I wasn't going to do it. Because when it came to crunch time, I got right onto this cannabis thing anyway, and it's real easy to do. It's really simple to understand. There's just a lot of obfuscation around it. So that needs to change. And we're trying to get that together here on Conspiracy Queries and Green Crush. It's Green Crush Conspiracy Queries with Alan Park. It's even going to take me a little bit of time to get that said. So before we get to Vera Toomey in England. Sorry, not England. Oh, my God, this is a live show. We'll have to cut that out for the retake. I didn't mean to offend my guest before I even had her on the show. We are going to have to say, sorry about that. She is in Ireland. She's in Dublin, of course. Just a slip of the mind. So thanks, Vera, for coming on. Wait till you hear what this woman has to say. Oh, my goodness. We are blown away by this woman, and you should Google her while you're waiting to have her come on here. Before we get to that, though, Eggplant Digital. Eggplant Digital Media, Canada's most exciting digital media content creator. Hopefully this is exciting content creation. Just telling you what happened in my life, that's all. I don't know if it's content or anything. It should help you, though. All right, we also have, there's a Lyft conference going on in Vancouver, and my producer, Kim, has tickets. And if you're subscribed to any one of the numerous platforms that Green Crush Conspiracy Queries is attached to, try to keep it to Green Crush for Kim and tell her you want to go to the Lyft conference. That's where a bunch of people that talk about cannabis and use it and partake of it in various different ways and means manage to get together, share some products, and find out about this wonderful plant. There's a whole industry coming up around this thing, and they're doing the best they can while the government does everything they can to shut it down. It's not supposed to be fun. It's not supposed to be good. It's not supposed to be entertaining. It's not supposed to help you. Meanwhile, we find that's not true at all. Can't really help you medically? Yes, it does. Can't really help us economically? Yes, it does. Eventually, all of these people who've been professing that this is garbage and terrible are going to have to scrape the egg off their face and get on the right side of history. Truth Seeker app. The Truth Seeker app. This show is on the Truth Seeker app. Now, I don't know when I say this show if I mean Green Crush or Conspiracy Queries. It's one or the other. Or both, hopefully. But you want to get on this app. Truth Seeker app is an app that collates and gathers a bunch of different shows that are highly informative and not always of the party line, the governmental party line. I know I'm going to be bucking my head up against this fake news, mainstream news thing, but I didn't create that. I just happened to notice. A couple other people I want to thank, too, before we get rolling here. Pierre Bork at bork.com. Bork.org. BOURQUE.org. Has a great news collation page there if you want to ever see what's going on around the world with a Canadian focus, because Pierre lives in Ottawa. Pierre Bork. A great page there. Bork.org. Gathers all the news of the day or some of the stuff that he finds more important than other things. A lot of mainstream things on there, of course. The Ottawa Citizen, the Globe and Mail, the Washington Post. And he's got a podcasters page on there. And I contacted Pierre, told him what was going on with me, and he put me right on the podcasters list on Bork.org. So BOURQUE.org. Find out some things that are going on in the world, and then click the button, and away you go to my show. And my name is Alan, so I got to be at the top of the list. He put Alan Parks Green Crush, which is not really how I use the name, but that's okay. That puts me at the top of the list with some fine other broadcasters, podcasters as well. I'd also like to mention Aleafia. Aleafia. It's the company that's selling cannabis that's been deeply financed and invested into by a couple of cops. Holy shit, that's not cool at all. We got us an asshole who used to be on the RCMP and another punk who used to be the chief of police in Toronto. Those guys put a bunch of people away. And now they want to sell weed. Holy fuck. I'm going to do something about that. And, of course, the show itself is available on iTunes. Got to talk about that. YouTube, iTunes, at Green Crush Pod, Google Play. We're all over the place. And now I'm merging the two formats together. That's what had to happen, like two DNA strands, because they are the same thing. So I'd like to say this to all the iTunes subscribers. If you are an iTunes subscriber of Green Crush or Conspiracy Queries, please do us a big, fat, juicy favor. I know you haven't heard from me for a while if you're a ConQ listener, but what would be great is if you could... You're getting the show now, right? That's great. So just disconnect, unsubscribe, go to the iTunes page, unsubscribe, and then resubscribe. If you could do that, that would bring us so much help. If you're new to the show and you're just a Green Crush listener and you want to go to Conspiracy Queries on iTunes with Alan Park and subscribe to that, unsubscribe to that, get back on. Let's make some noise out there. So I'm trying to help people. Trying to help me, and I'm trying to help people. So check that shit out. All right. So we are now going to, I'm going to get, Vera has been popping in there on Skype. We had some tech troubles. That's why we were unable today to start exactly on time at 2:03, and we are always a little bit late. And that's what happens. But here's the Skype. And let's hope we get Vera Toomey on the liney. Here we go.
Hello.
Vera. Hello.
Hi, Alan. How are you?
Good. Sounds like there's going to be a bit of a delay. Is that right?
Yeah, I can hear you.
You can hear me, but there's a delay, right? Are you answering on my heels? Let's take a look.
I
at
think
this
so. I hope so.
Okay. Well, you sound great. Listen, I think we'll just everyone understands there can sometimes be a delay on Skype, so I'm going to just introduce you to the crowd. I've already done that. I've told them who you are. I've told them you're an Irish mother and you've spent a lot of time outside of Ireland. Let's go back into time a little bit and tell us about your young, lovely daughter, Ava. And she was a little baby. And at one time, a little baby, and you found out some horrifying news. So let's just start at the beginning of the story, Vera, because no one over here in Canada and North America, we don't know your story enough. It's very powerful. So please tell us all about it.
Okay, I suppose my little girl, Ava Barry. Sorry, my name is Vera Toomey, and my daughter, Ava Barry, she's 8 years old now. She's just turned 8 in November, and you know, we're very lucky to have her, because when she was born, everything was fine, and I suppose about 4 months in, which is pretty common for parents that have kids with Dravet syndrome, around the 4-month mark, we took her in for vaccination, and she was vaccinated at about 11 o'clock in the morning, and later that night, around 7:45, Ava had her first 45-minute seizure.
How long was the seizure? How long? What was that?
It was nearly an hour. It was just over 45 minutes, her first tonic-clonic seizure.
My goodness.
And it was, to be honest with you, I don't know whether this happens to other people, but for me, I don't remember hardly anything about the night that it happened. I think that it was such a terrifying experience that it almost got wiped clean. But obviously, my mother was there with me. My husband was still out working at that stage, and we called the ambulance. We called my husband to come home, and he got home as quick as he could. We went into hospital. The seizure had stopped by the time the ambulance got to us, and she had another seizure, something like around 25 minutes again, going in the ambulance. So when we got in, they attempted to stop the seizures, but it wasn't really working for the doctors the way it normally would. And subsequently, anyway, we met a pediatric neurologist who sent away blood tests to Glasgow in Scotland, because the tests couldn't be done in Ireland. And they identified that Ava had a syndrome called the Dravet syndrome, which is a genetic malformation of a gene. And I suppose the Dravet syndrome or Dravet syndrome. And I suppose the connection with the vaccination, it could be either or, really. A lot of times kids with Dravet, it's their first experience of a spike in temperature after the vaccination, and they say that's what can trigger the first onset of seizures in kids with Dravet. So Ava continued to have her seizures for, let's say she was a November 2009 baby, so 2010, 11, 12, 13, 14 on. We went through every medication that was available to our daughter. We had the phenobarbital, the Rivotril, the stirpental, the clozapam, the Epilim, the Keppra, and many, many more. And unfortunately, as we were told the day that we were delivered our diagnosis, I probably should explain what happened that day. Actually,
do that.
We were brought into a room in the CUH hospital, and the neurologist said to us, we're very sorry to say that we have identified that your daughter has a form of epilepsy, and they said it's not a hereditary form of epilepsy, to which my husband said, well, that's good news. And the neurologist just said, no, it isn't good news. That's not good news at all, because the type of epilepsy your daughter has is an intractable, drug-resistant form of epilepsy that's caused by a malformation of a gene, or a mutation of the gene as they describe it, but I don't like the word mutation, so I like to say malformation. So the neurologist said to us anyway, your daughter, you need to accept, she said, that your daughter is never going to walk, she's never going to talk, she's going to be in a wheelchair, for sure. Now, she said she would advise us to look into residential care for our daughter, because we were going to need residential care for her. However, she said that the likelihood would be that our daughter wouldn't survive beyond the age of 3 years anyway. So that was the delivery of what we had ahead of us, 4 months after the birth of our first child. Now, so But it didn't end at that, because they had something for us, which was 3 photocopied pages off the internet, entitled Dravet's Syndrome for Dummies. And we were handed those 3 pages, and that was essentially it. And I remember thinking to myself, I cannot believe that somebody is handing me this. Like, I have seen these books on the shelves, you know, Microsoft Office for Dummies, you know, Learn Spanish for Dummies, you know, something like that. But this is my child. This is completely and utterly inappropriate. And I wouldn't really be one, Alan, like to be swearing, but what happened to me was that day I started to shout no. I just said no, no, no. And I was swearing, and they actually had to remove me out of the hospital because I went completely hysterical. It was something that had never happened to me before. But this was just the most, I'd say it's probably the worst day of my entire life, to have confirmed that, you know, this monster of a diagnosis had been placed on my daughter's shoulders. And so I felt very angry, because I felt like, you know, how can somebody tell me that my baby's going to be dead in 3 years' time? How do they know that? You know, I didn't know anything about Dravet syndrome at the time, but I knew in my life that there are difficult things that happen, and you have to try. At least you have to try and overcome them or do your best. But the diagnosis we were getting was that there was no hope at all. And they in the following months, they told me that I was in severe denial. And I said to them, yeah, that's grand. Like, I'm happy in severe denial, actually, because my daughter is going to walk. And, you know, if she doesn't walk, it's not going to be from the want of me trying to get her up on her feet. You know what I mean?
I do.
Like, I felt kind of, right, look, if Ava isn't going to be able to achieve walking or speaking, you know, we'll deal with that, but we're not going to deal with it on the basis of somebody telling us that's it. And,
so then you're at the juncture.
You know,
you're at the juncture at that point of having to accept. This is a very key point, because when we spoke earlier on the weekend before this show, there's a lot of things that happen to people like us, and what you found out was there was no choice, and there was nothing that could be done. And you know, a lot of people would prefer if you had have just left it like that.
Oh, goodness, Alan, they would absolutely. I mean, I suppose, you know, I've been a terrible pain in the neck to a lot of people, really.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm afraid that I'm not going to apologize for fighting for my child, you know, because, like, as I said to you, I kind of forgot to mention about how the diagnosis was delivered. But after the delivery of the diagnosis, Ava's seizures continued and continued and continued. And what happened was, we were started on phenobarbital. I think the next medication might have been Topamax. The next one, I think, was it might have been the Keppra. And what was happening was, like, they'd put you on one medication and it would fail, but they wouldn't take you off the medication that had failed. They put you on a second one. And for the first while, we were kind of saying, well, one medication failed. Okay, well, 2 tablets is probably better than 1. So, you know, that would be good. But then that didn't work either. And the next thing, we were maybe a year and a half, 2 years down the line, and Ava was on 5 different medications. At one point, Ava was on 19 tablets a day. And she was still having seizures.
The pharmacological crown and anchor wheel. They just spin that thing around. Hey, try this one. And it doesn't work either. Okay, go on.
That's what was happening, you know? And I mentioned a medication. I suppose essentially what was happening was there was constant seizures and constant trying of different medications, which were mounting up and up. And we got to a point then where there was
This medication called stiripentol has had excellent results for some people, and I wouldn't want to come across and say like that, you know, if pharmaceutical medications work successfully for somebody, you know, that's great.
Absolutely.
I mean,
what's the name of that one again? Can you tell me the name of that? You kind of dropped out there.
Sorry, it's a stiripentol, it's called.
Stiripentol. Okay.
Exactly, yeah. So that medication at the time that we got it, it wasn't licensed in Ireland, and they brought it in from England for Ava to try it, because we had essentially run out of options kind of around that time.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, I suppose actually there was one or two more we tried after the stiripentol. However, anyway, Ava was walking at this stage at around the age of 2.5, and because we got our daughter walking, you know, and like I would say to anybody, wherever they're listening, you know, if somebody tells you that your diagnosis and your outcome is going to be the same way that they told us that our outcome was going to be, you don't have to accept that. You don't have to take that, because you can try.
Well, a particularly ridiculous Englishman once told me, now we always have to obey what our doctor tells us. But no, I threw down the gauntlet at that point. I said, no, that's not true. Not always.
Yeah. Sure, you might obey for a while, but, you know, I think it's good to disobey then later in the time, you know. I mean, my little girl at that time that the stiripentol came into her life, it resulted, they put her on the stiripentol. She reacted extremely badly to it, and it resulted in my daughter being in a coma for a week.
Oh, my goodness.
And it was directly the stiripentol medication, it was uploaded into her body too quickly, and she just went down, and we've nearly lost Ava a couple of times, but
that was a very, very, very severe. She had a very severe reaction, and I can remember, you know, being inside in the sort of, you know, the room closest to the nurse's station, and there was four doctors, and there was about 7 nurses inside in the room, and I didn't realize, Alan, till afterwards that they were waiting for my daughter to die, you know, because she'd been in the coma for a week at this stage, and they had given up, and it was just a case of putting down the hours until my daughter died. But the thing is, Ava didn't. She came out of that coma, and that child pulled the cord, you know, the IV line out of her arm, and she sat up. And I looked at that child and I said, do you know something?
I'll never, as long as I live, I'll never give up on you, because she's never given up, and she's fought from the day she was born to stay with us. And
but what does she know, though, compared to all these? What does she know, though, compared to all these doctors that have gone to school and taken degrees and know all kinds of things? Why would you listen to what your daughter has to say at that point?
But you know, that's the great difficulty, isn't it? I mean, you know, kind of nobody inside in the hospital was very happy to see us arriving in again, because after time, you know, you develop courage, and you develop the ability to not accept what's being said to you, and to challenge what's being said to you.
Right.
And that really does make, I think, a lot of the medical people very uncomfortable.
Yes.
Because they're not used to that. They don't like to be challenged much. But yeah, like, after the stiripentol, there was another couple of medications tried. But the thing was, my daughter had got up and walked at that stage. You know, she'd done it. But after that week-long coma, she lost the ability to walk because of what happened to her. But still, it took us 12 months more to get her back up on her feet and walking again. But she did it. She lost nearly all her body weight. she had developed some words. She had 3 or 4 words, maybe a little bit more. And, you know, she lost those words as well because the seizures wiped them clean. And it took another year to get her back on her feet, but she did it again. And we continued with the seizures. And when I say that we continued with seizures, we're talking about 7, 9, 11, 14 tonic-clonic seizures every day, something like that. Alongside drop seizures, myoclonic jerks, absences, all of those on top of the tonic-clonic seizures.
Can I ask you something? Can I ask you something about the seizures? I'd like to ask this.
Yeah.
It's a couple of sidebar questions. First of all, it's just shocking to think of that at all. But I want to know else. What were there other injuries that came from the seizure? Specifically, did she bang her head on the wall while she was, you know, wrenching back and forth? Did she injure herself additionally?
Yeah, like I must tell you that I think like that there's a couple. We have been incredibly lucky in the sense that Ava hasn't ever had that many, you know, severe cuts or bangs or damage to her face or anything. Mm-hmm. I think there's an element of luck, and I think that there's also just in the practical sense that I'm never more than feet away from the child, because the seizures were coming so often that like you were just kind of waiting for the next one to come. So she'd never be more than a couple of feet away from us. So I was always kind of there to catch her, or my mother was there, or my husband was there, you know. But we have been lucky. You know, she got it was actually, the funny thing was that she has a little mark up near her eye, but ironically that happened. She tripped one day and fell against the cupboard where the television is up on the cupboard on the corner of that, so it wasn't actually seizure related, which is amazing. Oh. But
we've been very lucky. The I suppose, what can I say, like the things continued, and you know, all of this now, what was going on was very private, because like we've become kind of public people through everything that's happened with it, but we were very private about what was going on, and we just wanted to get her stabilized on something and get it sorted. But it came to a point in October of 2015 where she had around that time she had 18 tonic-clonic seizures in about 8.5 hours, and she had a cardiac arrest. Wow. So she had a heart attack, and around that time we were in the CUH hospital again, and they told us that there was nothing more that could be done other than revisit all of the medications which had already failed.
Oh, right.
And I said to, you know, I said that make you want us to go back to the beginning to try all the options that have failed my daughter.
Amazing. Yeah.
I said that doesn't make any sense. Like, there must be something else available. And they said, well, all we can offer now is to monitor her seizures, and that you would take her home and make her comfortable. And
can I say right here what happened? What happened to me at that particular juncture on my journey was that I was beyond all help, beyond radiation surgery or chemotherapy, and I started using cannabis oil. And after about 7 or 8 months of doing really well on cannabis oil, my doctor told me, "You're doing so well, now you're ready for chemotherapy." Do go on.
Oh no! Yeah, he might have been ready, but I don't think you were ready, were you?
No, I wasn't ready at all.
No. With us, it's funny. It's something similar. We were very, very blessed. We've been very blessed in a lot of ways, you know. Like the person
the person who came to our attention pretty much immediately, because at the 2015 stage, I had done an awful lot of research about the medical cannabis. I'd seen how well Charlotte Figge was doing over in the States. You know, seen her mom Paige, heard about the Stanley brothers, never thought that I would meet them, but I have met Joelle and I've met Jessie. And
tell us a bit about who they are.
People.
Tell us who those guys are right now.
Joel Stanley and Jessie Stanley would be the producers of the Charlotte's Web Oil, which is named after a little girl, Charlotte Figge, and her mom, Paige Figge, who had severe epilepsy as well. And Charlotte was on a do not resuscitate list at one point. She was having upwards of a couple of hundred seizures every day. And Paige very bravely went to the boys and asked them to help her daughter, and they did, and they were able to administer cannabis oil, the Charlotte's Web Oil as it's called now, which assisted Charlotte in reaching, you know, the level of activity that she's at now, because I see sometimes on Facebook, you know, she's riding her bike and she's doing all kinds of things, and I just hope that, you know, we'll be the same as that. I believe actually that we will. But at the time in 2015, it was just around that time that Charlotte's Web Oil became available in the hemp store on Capel Street above in Dublin. And we met Mark and Jim up there, and we got the Charlotte's Web Oil. I met Jessie Stanley in the store very briefly that time. It was Joel Stanley in the in the store very briefly that time, and just was very impressed with his sincerity, and that helped us a great deal also then to trust that the oil would be a good thing for Ava, and it really was. The results of starting on the CBD oil alone were magnificent.
And where were you when you were doing that? Where were you when you were giving her that oil? Still at home?
In Ireland, Ireland, you know, like in October of 2015, I started a change.org petition to get in contact with the Minister for Health. Now, the minister actually didn't want to meet me, which was hardly surprising, I suppose. But I persisted, and it was around that time that we became very public on the radio and newspapers and any sort of opportunity really that we could to highlight Ava's need for the oil that was working so well for Charlotte to get access to it. We were very keen for a neurologist to be involved to oversee Ava's care for her safety as well.
Didn't want to meet you, huh?
But no, he didn't. And it took me 8 months to get a meeting with Simon. And in the end, the way I got my first meeting with Simon was that I went on a program hosted by Jonathan Healy. I think it was News Talk, I think it was on. And I just said, look, my daughter's in a really bad way. I need to meet the minister. I've been trying for 8 months to meet him. And if he's not going to meet me, I'll go up on the train and I'm going to go to Dublin and I'm going to stand outside the gates because I have to meet this man and talk to this man about getting what my daughter needs.
Yeah.
So he rang and I got a meeting. And subsequent, and there was, you know, we had hope at that stage that something would be done, but subsequently nothing was really done. We had another couple of meetings with Simon Harris, and, you know, Ava's condition was, you know, Ava was in a bad way from time to time, really, and so it would have been. We wanted to apply for a license to bring medical cannabis then in. I want THC as well.
Sure.
Because with the Dravet syndrome, the CBD oil may have a good effect, but from what I had read and what I had studied, the THC was necessary to complement the CBD oil.
I just want to stop here right now. I want to
reduction.
stop you there right now because that is such an important point. I'm sorry it's a bit awkward because of the Skype delay that we have, but that is a key point. So many people don't want to have the THC in there because there's a moral reason, or their teacher said it was bad, or some kind of misinformation, fiction, where people need to take, they say, oh, just give me the CBD oil. I don't really want to take the THC because, I don't want to be a bad person, or I don't want to feel weird or something. They never said, I don't want to feel weird when they do chemo, but it's important.
The thing is, I suppose, Alan, people are afraid, they're afraid. And, you can't underestimate the power of fear either,
Oh, you can bank on it.
But the thing about it is, the pharmaceutical industry, I think, exploit that fear, and they portray the THC aspect of the plant as something that's very dangerous, whereas I don't see it that way. It's not the experience that I've had with my daughter. It's not frightening. It's not.
It could mess with your brain a little bit, though. You take some THC, it might mess with your brain a little bit. So, you can do that, or we can cut you open with a saw and start taking pieces of that brain out. How about that?
Yeah.
That's okay to do.
Yeah. I mean, this is the sad reality of what's going on, that people are having brain surgery for their epilepsy before they'd be even given a chance of trying the CBD and THC, which do seriously complement each other to the nth degree.
It's definitely the wrong way to look at a telescope, that's for sure.
We, I suppose 2017 was the biggest kind of year for us. I suppose what I should say about 16 was, we had the few meetings with Simon, and they told us that we'd have to get a pediatric neurologist to apply for the license for our daughter, and our pediatric neurologist wouldn't apply for the license for our daughter. I tried to find another pediatric
neurologist in Ireland to apply for the license for the medication. I couldn't find anybody else that was willing to take her on to do this. And so then they told us that a GP could apply for the license. So we got her a GP to apply for the license for our daughter in November of 2016. And they played around with the application from November of 2016 to February time of 2017. Now, what was also going on in tandem with this was that we had met a man called Gino Kenny. He's a TD at Choctaw, a member of Parliament above in Dáil Éireann, which is the Parliament in Ireland. And he put forward in July of 16, 17. Sorry, I'm just, my dates are getting muddled now. It was July of 17.
Yeah, it was July of 17 that Gino put forward the legislation for people to be allowed to use medical cannabis in Ireland. And
bill was debated in the Dáil around the December time, and it went through.
Okay, so I'm just going to stop you again because the Skype cut out. Hang on a second, Vera. The Skype cut out a little bit again, and I lost the high end of what you're saying. You said you went to the Irish Parliament, and just pick it up from there. The folks may not know the Dáil. The Dáil is the Parliament. So for people know the parliamentary system.
That's right. Dáil is Parliament. Yeah, and we. With Gino Kenny, the TD, the Member of Parliament, he was supporting us all along as we tried to apply for a license.
Good man.
But the paediatric neurologist wouldn't apply for the license. The government then told us that GP could apply for the license, and they mucked around with our application from November to February of 2017. And then we had another meeting with them, and at that meeting, they said that they were not going to accept the application from the GP because the GP wasn't a qualified enough person to apply for the license. And I said, and my husband said, but lads, I mean, are you joking? Because you told us we could get a GP to apply for the license. We found a GP to apply for the license, and now you're saying that was never going to work. So I remember sitting at that fine mahogany table in the beautiful big high ceilinged room, and I said, this is not going to work. Like I said, I'm going to go home and I'm going to do something. And I wasn't sure what I was going to do, Alan. But when we left the all that day, I said to Paul,
I'm going to walk. And he said, like, you're what? And I said, I'm going to walk to Dublin. And my husband thought I was after losing my mind. So,
how far away are you from Dublin? How far is that walk? How long of a walk is that?
It would be in a car. It would be about 2.5 hours, 3 hours to drive. I suppose.
Wow.
It's a couple of 100 miles. I think it's about 200. Is about 200 miles, 150 miles. I'm not sure.
Okay.
But anyway, like, I mean, Ava was continuing to have seizures, like, at this stage, and so at the table that day, I said, now the thing was, I began to walk and completed the walk from Mallow to Dublin at the end of February 2017. But around the November time, I had begun a previous walk, which I had started in my home village of Ahabolog, and I walked 18 miles to Mallow in just that one day. And Simon Harris rang me that evening and he said he'd meet me again. He told me, Vera, I'm not comfortable with you doing this. And I said to Simon, and by the way, Simon Harris, the Minister for Health in Ireland, I said, well, Simon, I'm not comfortable with doing it either, but I mean, what do you expect me to do? Like, you won't communicate with us and it's not working. And he said to me at that time, he said, Vera, promise me that you won't do this again. And I said, no, Simon, I won't promise you anything. I said, what I'll promise you is that if you come up with a solution to help my daughter, then I will
not do this again. But if you don't come up with something to help my daughter, then I am going to complete this walk and I will be back again to do it. And so that was the November of 16 that we had another meeting because of that original walk that I did. And I stopped the walk because he met us again, but I had told him that I would recommence it. And when they abandoned our application in February of 17, I said, I'm going to start again. So we drove into Mallow. Mallow, as it said now, is about
18 miles from our home here. And we began to walk to Dublin from Mallow.
Did you have any media coverage at all when you were there, Vera? Was there anybody following this?
Well, this was not the one thing that was absent from our walk to Dublin was a plan, because there was no plan.
This was a spontaneous thing because it was on the Thursday that they told us that the application was rejected. I was ready to walk on the Friday, but Gino Kenny and my husband Paul talked me out of that, and I said, right, we'll start on Monday, and I wasn't having anything but that. And Gino got a one-way ticket down from Dublin, down to Mallow train station, and he walked the whole way back up to Dublin with me. We had the TV3 news because I was in constant contact at the time with Paul Byrne, and Paul and his cameraman came out and covered us as we started walking.
3 News.
But that was the
TV3 News, and then a number of radio stations picked up on it as well. It is what happened on the journey that was really amazing. Like I just had learned how to do Facebook Live at the time, so we kept in contact with people on Facebook via the Facebook Lives,
right.
And people just started to join us.
Oh, that's great.
On the course of the 9 days that it took us to walk the rest of the ways to Dublin, there was certainly more than 5,000 people joined us on that walk to Dublin.
5,000? Wow, that's amazing.
yeah, not all at the one time now, mind you, but people did what they could. When we went from Mallow to Kildallery, people joined us. When we went from Kildallery onwards to Mitchellstown, people joined us. When we went from Mitchellstown up to Cahir, people joined us. And it happened like that the whole way up. We had radio coverage from the radio stations that were in the vicinity of where we were walking. And things, just the most extraordinary kindness. Like, people were so furious that somebody had to do this to get attention for their child.
Now, I'm going to get to the point here. I'm going to get to a point now because will you come back on the show sometime?
Of course, I'd be delighted, yeah.
You're not gone yet, but I just wanted to tell you that I have to take this to some different key points and then get going at some point, because we will have to close the show out at some point. But I want to just tell the folks that your walk to Dublin to change the minds of the parliamentarians didn't really work. They didn't change their minds, so you had to leave the country and take your daughter with you.
Well, yes, what I suppose to kind of try and cut it short and fit it in for you a little bit was we got to Dublin. By the time we got to the gates of the Dáil, I think there could have been, conservatively, I think there was about 3,000 people. The streets were absolutely lined with people supporting Ava. We had a 5-hour meeting with the minister and his team. What came out of that essentially was nothing that was of any immediate benefit to my daughter. So what I did was we found a clinic in Spain which were willing to prescribe the THC for my daughter. Mm-hmm. I went to Spain with Gino Kenny and Luke Ming-Flanagan, the MEP over in Europe. And they arrested me on the way back into Ireland with the THC that I had a prescription for.
Okay, hang on a second. Hang on a second. Mm-hmm. You had to go to Spain, and you over there, you were able to obtain a cannabis oil or a marijuana, some kind of license, and is that how it worked? Spain doctors were allowing you to, Spanish doctors were allowing you to take this, or how does it work?
You're partially right. I did not have a license to bring the THC oil back into the country, but I had a prescription to bring it back into the country. And at this stage, I said, I felt like they can do with me what they want to do with me, because my daughter is more important than anything that they can, threaten me with. Mm-hmm. So I brought the THC back into the country, and I was criticised for this, but I felt it was the right thing to do, because I'm not a criminal and I'm not doing anything wrong by bringing an oil that's been prescribed for my child into the country. I declared my oil. So
you had it on the plane. Now, you had it on your person on the plane, right?
Yeah.
And you got off the plane and you went into the airport, and then what happened?
They had sniffer dogs waiting inside in the airport to search us. So they lined us up against a wall inside in the airport, and they ran the sniffer dogs up and down all the passengers, including ourselves.
All the passengers.
Now, ironically, they didn't find the THC oil. The dog didn't find it. So
he's probably high.
I just took it out of my pocket and walked over to them, and I said, this is probably what you're looking for, isn't it? I said, I'm bringing Ava's medication home. So they arrested Gino, Luke and myself. They interrogated us for over an hour, and they confiscated the oil from me. Now, I was released, but I still didn't have what I needed for Ava. So on the 17th of June of this year, we decided that
our only option was to leave for Holland. So we left Ireland on the 17th of June. We went and we were exiled in Holland from June 17 of this year to about the 1st of December, I think. 2017,
I beg your pardon.
That's
Sorry,
okay.
muddled up.
Happy New Year to you, too.
Happy New Year to you as well. And so in the course of the time over in Holland, I must say that we got the most extraordinary treatment, the most extraordinary kindness, and the most enlightenment from medical people that I have encountered in the 8 years that I've been dealing with Ava's seizures.
So no sniffer dogs over there, no arrests? No, none at all, huh? No, civilized.
Nothing. Just civilized, logical support.
Wow.
And our daughter was prescribed CBD and THC oil provided from the Transvaal Pharmacy in The Hague. And
say the name of that pharmacy one more time, please. Can you just say that again?
It's Transvaal Pharmacy in The Hague.
Okay, thanks. Thank you very much.
So the result of us being over in Holland from June 17 to December was on Ava's THC and CBD oil was that my daughter's cognitive ability has gone through the roof. She has
essentially got seizure freedom.
Wow.
Now, I say essentially because my daughter is a vulnerable child, and you will not cure Dravet syndrome, and it's part of who Ava is, and it will remain to be part of who she is.
Yeah. And
if Ava's temperature goes up, she's vulnerable to a tonic-clonic seizure, and she has had some, but it is insignificant in comparison to what Ava's life had been previously. I like to kind of think that Ava was existing up until the time that she had medical cannabis. It was only when medical cannabis came into her life that she began to be allowed to live her life and have space enough from the seizures that she could make the progress that she's making. My daughter is talking. My daughter is saying things that are appropriate. She is
amazing.
She is making more. She has made more progress in the last 6 months on the CBD THC treatment that she's receiving from Holland than she had in years previous.
Hey, let me ask you this, though. You were gone for 5 months out of the country. Your husband is at home. He doesn't get to spend time with his wife or his little baby because they have to go to a different continent to get medication from some civilized people instead of getting sniffer dogged and arrested at home in the airport. And you're using cannabis oil that has THC and CBDs in it together. And now you're at this place where you had to spend 5 months out of the country while your husband stayed home and made sure everything could happen, while you're paying for your own accommodation, I'm sure, or maybe someone helped you with that. You had to stay over there and live in a different place just so your child could take plant juice.
And you have no idea, there are people in Canada that contributed to Ava's GoFundMe page, and it would be really nice if any of the people that contributed to Ava's GoFundMe page from your country are listening now, because without them, this wouldn't have happened for us.
Well, thank you for everybody that listens to the show in Canada. We actually have more listeners in the United States now, but for everyone in Canada that contributed towards this cause, thanks for paying attention and listening to it. Listen to this woman. Her kid, she's not have a comatose kid. She doesn't have a dead kid. She has a very alive, thriving kid who has massively reduced these terrible seizures that were on the way to ending her life, apparently.
And actually, sorry, I thought you were in Canada, but there's been masses of support from America as well. So thank you, because without the we didn't want to set up a GoFundMe page. We didn't want to do that at all, and I resisted in doing that for the longest time that I could. But our government wouldn't support our travel abroad. They wouldn't sign the necessary documentation for what's called the Treatment Abroad scheme in Ireland. So we had to do it ourselves.
Yeah.
But it was the best thing that we could ever have done. And without the support on Facebook that I received from people, without the friends, without the followers, without the sharing, we could not and would not have been able to put the pressure on the government that we subsequently did, and we resulted in my daughter being granted a license to bring legal back into the country the way that she should be, and the way that anybody else in Ireland or any other country should be allowed to have their medical cannabis.
I want to thank you for telling us.
Because it is a medicine.
I want to thank you for telling us this story because you said a very important thing there that I'm sure a lot of people picked up on is you had to take your own responsibility. You couldn't rely on the government to say, okay, this is a good idea. Okay, we'll let you do this. You were a tiger. You had to go after them and say, I'm not taking this for an answer. I'm not going to be told she can't have THC. I'm not going to be told I'm not able to use this stuff. I'm not going to be held in the country if that's the way you're going to be. I'll go somewhere else and do it. My kid's going to live. She doesn't need death or comas or try the same drugs you used the last time. She needs this plant juice. And that's what you're going to do. So I'm so thrilled that you were able to put a fine point on it. Folks, you can't always take yourself to the doctor and say, here I am, I'm a mess, fix me. Sometimes you have to take responsibility and you have to power through this thing. And you're one of the most strength-filled women I've ever come across in my life. You're a fantastic person. You've saved a child's life, and you're sharing that story to help other people realize, to pull the hood off of their eyes. So thank you.
I think it's so important. I think it's the most important thing to talk about it because, like,
Geneva was bad. It's a very lonely place. It's a very, very dark place to be. You know, to sort of have no hope, to have nothing to aim for, nothing to try, only just accept. I wasn't going to accept it. Not what I was trying. No. Not when I saw Charlotte and her success, not.
It's a legal alternative in Holland, in Germany, in Italy, in Poland, in all of these other countries in mainland Europe. It must happen here in Ireland. It must happen over in Great Britain because we cannot be left 20 years behind the rest of the world. This is the future, and this is something not only like my personal experience is in epilepsy, yours is with the cancer, you know, but it's not just epilepsy or cancer, it's so many other conditions as well.
It is.
That if people look into it and look at the research is there. I would personally recommend the Barnes report written by Professor Michael Barnes from Newcastle University. He wrote 160 pages of information, which is so informative. You know, if you're starting from wanting to know the basics about the CBD, the
Give
THC,
us his name again, will you?
And it's a very balanced.
Tell us his name again.
That's Professor Michael Barnes
and spell
from
that for
Newcastle
us.
University.
Spell Barnes.
Barnes would be Barnes, B-A-R-N-S, Barnes.
Oh, okay, thanks. All right, we will look for that. That's amazing stuff. I am so thrilled that you have done this, and there will be other people able to do this. So let me ask you this question. You were able to get this medicine, and then you came home and you were detained at the airport by sniffer dogs and an investigation of sorts. You finally got back to your home in Ireland, and you've been there using it. So the doctors now and the government, the politicians now, they must be thrilled that this stuff is working and that everything's up and running.
I don't think they're that thrilled. No, I don't think they're thrilled at all in Ireland anyway.
Why is that?
Unfortunately.
Why not?
Because I just think that there's
a particularly tight stranglehold in Ireland with the pharmaceutical industry.
Oh.
It's one of those things that, I mean, I don't have evidence of this, but you can only guess as to why there isn't just complete and utter joy to find an answer to patients' problems. Or I can't understand why there isn't even a willingness to embrace this treatment for other people. But in Ireland at the moment, there have only been 4 licenses granted for medical cannabis.
4?
And, you know, 4 in
like
the whole
4
country.
in total in the whole country?
4 in the whole country, yes. Yeah. And, you know, the thing is, it's not necessarily all of the doctors, because some of the doctors are extremely resistant to it, but more of the consultants that I have encountered are more open-minded and more willing to consider it based on even just seeing the dramatic improvement in our daughter. I mean, my daughter was singing over in Holland. She started to sing. I got that. I'm so blessed that I got that on a video, and I was able to put that up. You know, she like, this is a child that they said would never talk.
Kim, we're going to need to get
now.
that video on our page. I'm just telling my producer Kim and Danny, we need to get that video somehow in Green Crush World, because I want to see that.
Sure, I think if you go to YouTube and type in Ava Barry Galway Girl, I think it comes up there on YouTube. It's spectacular, you know. I don't know why they don't want to embrace this. I think even based on the miraculous, it's not even a miracle, it's just logic. This works, you know.
Yeah.
Like, based on Ava's progress, they should be rushing a proper and considered legislation through. Nothing rash or ridiculous, but something to help the ordinary people, you know. But that's not happening here at the moment. But Gino Kenny's legislation is up for debate again, I think sometime in February or March.
Right.
It's being held back again on another point at the moment. But, you know, I just hope that people here will see sense.
Well, listen to
this. This is something.
We do have this clip available now. I want to play this. This is a little girl who lives in Ireland now. She's already lived for a good portion of her life, for 5 or 6 months. When you're such a young person, that's a long time. She's already lived in Spain and also Amsterdam, and she was going to be banging herself around for a long time, probably snapping herself out of existence. She has had seizures. She has been in a coma. She has tried an unbelievable amount of medications, none of which worked. So when that happened, they offered her the medications again. And that's kind of nuts. But anyway, here is Ava Barry singing a brilliant rendition of Galway
Ava,
Girl.
Galway Girl. Galway Girl. Yay, my pretty little Galway Girl. Galway Girl. Galway Girl. My pretty little Galway
She's so cute.
Girl.
She's smiling.
Look.
Yeah, and
That's amazing.
Actually, I think I don't know whether it's gone out in the States or not, but Ed Sheeran, the man who wrote that song, you know,
right?
I actually managed to someone got in contact with him and told him, because that's his song. I think he's going to be on The Simpsons or something in the coming days, or maybe just gone. I heard that on the radio the other day, but you might know Ed Sheeran, so it's his song.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And like, I was able to pass on a message to him to tell him like that, you know, he really touched her. Like, that's like, that was an amazing day. It really was.
Well, you Irish people have to stick together. This is a terrible situation that is seeming to change, because I'm going to guess that there are far more people in Ireland as a country that need cannabis oil than just 3 other people besides your daughter. I just don't believe that there are only 4 necessary cases of this particular oil. I don't believe it. I think a lot more people are going to have to get to the point where they realize.
Oh, there's so many people that there's so many people that need it. There's so many people that are looking for it, and they're just not coming into contact with the doctors that are accepting of it at the moment. And not everybody is in the position that we were in to get such enormous support to be able to leave the country and to go and do what we did, you know. So like we have been, you know, it's been an awful struggle and it's been awful hard with Ava, but we've been very, very lucky, you know, that we've been lucky that she's such a fighter, and we've been lucky that the people around the world cared enough to, you know, step in and stand up for my daughter.
You're amazing. I told you this when we spoke on the weekend. I know you've got a husband. I know you've got a family. But I love you. I love you, Vera Toomey. There's no getting around it. There's no getting around it, Vera. We're going to have to figure something out. We're going to have to get together for real sometime. I mean, you got to write a book, man. You've got an incredible book there. You've got a wonderful story. and it's true. And it's
Yeah,
going to
well,
help
the
other
thing is,
people.
you know, we wouldn't have been able to get there only that everybody stuck together, you know, my
That's
mother, my husband, you know, like even my kids, because Ava's my oldest, Ava's 8 now, but like my Sophia is 6, Michael is 5, Elvira May is 3 in a couple of days, you know, even that they're such little kids, but like even they were talking like below in school, telling their friends, Mommy's gone to get the medical cannabis, you know, so, you know, that's
good for them. We're going to have to change some perceptions around and get people to understand that this thing is not a bad thing. It's a tool, and it's a food, and it should be used properly. And when you do that, you're going to have a much better time than just following the party line of this is a crime and don't do this. You know, it's better that we have people like you, and I'm happy to be in that group of people that realize some things work, and we need to stop pretending that they don't. So, Vera, thank you so much for coming on the show. We're going to have you on again, absolutely, and we are going to hear some more progress from you.
I hope so. I think so. I hope so. Yeah.
All right.
Hopefully it'll be for everybody else as well as Ava. You know. Yeah.
As well. Okay. Well, thank you very much. This will be the very first interview that I've had this year, and I'm so happy that it was you and that you are helping turn things around.
Oh, thank you, Alan.
We will definitely get back in touch with you. Vera Toomey coming in and say hello to Ava for us and the rest of your fine family, and tell your husband to look out, because I love you. Okay. So,
thanks very much.
Thanks for coming on. I really appreciate that you're here. Back at you. All right. Take care. You've done great things. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Well, there she goes. What do you think of that lady? I think it's amazing what she's done. This is the theme song that brings the show to a close back in the days when it was conspiracy queries and conspiracy queries only. But the good news is it's not just that anymore. It's Green Crush conspiracy queries. And so we've got some more things to talk about. And I know Russell, the engineer, is kind of freaking out here because this is, we had a late start. And we also went long. So that's what's happening right now. Let me just take a look here and say that's what I need. Okay, so yeah, we have a couple more things we got to read right now. I just want to squeeze this in. I always like to say this one. This is a very important piece of information. So right here it says that if we can get to it, that hang on. All right. So, chemo dramatically increases cancer growth. This is a report, not my opinion. There may be other reports that counter this, but I'm going to read this one right now, thanks. I read all the other ones when I wasn't supposed to live. The biphasic effect is well explained by Dr. Dean Black and many other researchers who were trying to figure out why tumors seem to come back with such a vengeance after chemotherapy. Some original work was done by American Cancer Society researcher Robert Shimke in 1985, who discovered that the way cancer cells resist chemotherapy is to replicate even harder and faster. The biphasic is also called the rebound phenomenon. The drugs attack the tumor cells and then resist and rebound twice as strong, often mutating in the process. I know Vera didn't like to use that word, but it is a word. Mutating. Mutants. I guess I'm a mutant now. In the above study, Dr. Robert Shimke noted that with chemo combos, the rebound effect may bring about a tumor cell proliferation rate which may be 100 times faster than before. Ow, 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 ow. That sucks. That's Robert Shimke's methotrexate resistance and gene amplification. That's some pretty heavy shit, right? This isn't really a stoner show, you know, although it's pretty fun to listen to when you are. But that area is already well represented. Who else is up for some talk here? High time introducing The Guardian. The Guardian's new cannabis column for grown-ups. Now, I have to thank The Guardian because they were so fantastic with their article, Cannabis, It's a Miracle. This was, Google that up, take a look at it, November 4th, 2001. How cannabis is no longer just an anecdotal relief for some people. If you keep saying that, you're an asshole that just doesn't want to do the research. That's okay. I'll save you some bother. It works really well, or I wouldn't be here. I'm going to keep banging this hammer down, helping some people out. But now this Guardian has a new cannabis column for grown-ups. Cannabis has long been shrouded in misinformation and stoner stereotypes, but with California, now the world's largest legal market. Hey, how's it going, my American listeners? And others likely to follow suit, it's time to start talking like adults. So Alex Halperin is going to kick off a conversation and invites your questions. Here's a question for you, Alex. Will you be covering any podcasts on your new column scope as Pierre Bourque does here in Canada with Bourque.org? Because I'd like to talk to you. I'm an adult, and I use cannabis, and I had cancer. I've got more shit to talk about right now. Yeah, recreational pot puts medicinal on the back burner. This is in a Canadian newspaper, the Financial Post. Canada's riding high when it comes to cannabis. By next summer, that's this summer, the country could be the first G7 economy to have legalized or legalized or recriminalized recreational marijuana, creating an all-new industry expected to generate billions of dollars in cash for companies and government coffers. But while pot smokers and the companies that will serve them celebrate, the concerns of the medical marijuana industry seem to be getting short shrift. For one thing, the federal government in November proposed to subject medical cannabis to the same excise tax, or sin tax, as some refer to it, as its recreational cousin. Now, if you have a medicine that works, why are you taxing it at the rate of $454 a pound? Sin tax. That's pretty funny. It's all in how you say it. The sin tax. Well, we're going to be taking that apart, too, because that's just a big old load of garbage. I got to say, this has been a fantastic journey for me because I got to live. We are also going to do a very quick shot at this particular show that was on recently. This is a chunk from the Corbett Report podcast, and they're going to be talking a little bit about the medical situation. Vera brought it up. I brought it up. You'll have to bring it up if you're in a similar situation. And some people claim to think they know exactly why that is.
So they approach four of the then most prominent teachers of American history in the country, people like Charles and Mary Bird, and their suggestion to them is, will they alter the manner in which they present this subject, and they get turned down flat. So they then decide that it is necessary for them to do, as they say, build our own stable of historians. And then they approach the Guggenheim Foundation, which specializes in fellowships, and say, when we find young men in the process of studying for doctorates in the field of American history, and we feel that they are the right caliber, will you grant them fellowships on our say-so? And the answer is yes. So under that condition, eventually they assemble 20. And they take this 20 potential teachers of American history to London, and there they're briefed into what is expected of them when, as and if they secure appointments in keeping with the doctorates they will have earned. And that that group of 20 historians ultimately becomes the nucleus of the American Historical Association. And toward the end of the 1920s, the endowment grants to the American Historical Association $400,000 for a study of our history in a manner which points to what can this country can it look forward to in the future. And that culminates in a 7-volume study, the last volume of which is, of course, in essence, a summary of the contents of the other 6. And the essence of the last volume is the future of this country belongs to collectivism administered with characteristic American efficiency.
Here we go.
With this base for transformation firmly established, the Rockefeller Foundation and like-minded organizations embarked on a program so ambitious that it almost defies comprehension. They transformed the practice of medicine. As usual, the oligarchs that funded this change were also there to profit from it, and once again, John D. took his cue from Devil Bill's example. William Rockefeller had called his brand of snake oil Nujol for new oil, and Standard Oil spun off Nujol as a laxative under their Stanco subsidiary.
Ooh.
Manufactured on the same premises as Flit, an insecticide also derived from Standard Oil's byproducts, Nujol sold at the druggist for 28 cents per 6-ounce bottle. It cost Standard Oil less than 1/5 of a cent to manufacture.
Bastards.
Pharmaceuticals provided a lucrative new opportunity for the oligarchs. But in a turn-of-the-century America that was still largely based on naturopathic herbal remedies, it was a tough sell. The oligarchy went to work changing that. In 1901, John D. established the Rockefeller Institute for Medical Research. The institute recruited Simon Flexner, a pathology professor at the University of Pennsylvania, to serve as its director. His brother, Abraham, was an educator who was contracted by the Carnegie Foundation to write a report on the state of the American medical education system. His study, the Flexner Report, along with the hundreds of millions of dollars that the Rockefeller and Carnegie Foundations were to shower on medical research in the coming years, resulted in a sweeping overhaul of the American medical system. Naturopathic and homeopathic medicine, medical care focused on unpatentable, unmarketable natural remedies and cures, was now dismissed as quackery. Only drug-based allopathic medicine requiring expensive medical procedures and lengthy hospital stays was to be taken seriously.
The fortunes of Carnegie, Morgan, and Rockefeller financed surgery, radiation, and synthetic drugs. They were to become the economic foundations of the new medical economy.
The takeover of the medical industry was accomplished by the takeover of the medical schools. Well, the people that we're talking about, Rockefeller and Carnegie in particular, came to the picture and said, we will put up money. They offered tremendous amounts of money to the schools that would agree to cooperate with them.
Tremendous amounts of money. That's what this is always about. The paper chase. Oh my gosh. So that's kind of strange, isn't it? Maybe that's why Vera Toomey, they weren't so happy at the hospital, understanding what was going on. You've been ripped off. We're claiming that knowledge back now. So, yeah. That's what happened there. So thanks for that, the Corbett Report. This has been a fantastic time with the wonderful Vera. And what we're going to do now for the end of the show, folks, we've got a couple of things here we're going to play. And I'm gone now. That's it. We're done. We'll be back next week with episode 24 and episode 96. Just going to play another 4 minutes on the way out. We have a soundscape here for you. Going to play that again. It was at the beginning of the show. It's about 4 minutes long, so if you if you don't want to hear it, you're done anyway. The show's over. But in the meantime, this is Alan Park with Green Crush Conspiracy Queries. Thank you for listening to the old show. Thank you for listening to the new one. Disengage and re-engage on iTunes. That'll help us out a bunch. We will see you again next week. Thanks for everything.
And that spells the best fine stereo.
Alan,
Ladies and gentlemen,
you were having a nightmare. What if it's true?
ladies and gentlemen,
Alan, it's a possibility, isn't it?
the very word secrecy is repugnant
Secrets.
in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers,
Constant, extreme danger.
which are cited to justify it. Even today, there is little value in opposing the threat of a closed society by imitating its arbitrary restrictions. Even today, there is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it. And there is very grave danger,
Extreme danger.
that an announced need for increased security
This is Conspiracy Queries with Alan Hart.
will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment. That I do not intend to permit to the extent that it's in my control.
You're crazy.
And no officious, high or low, civilian or military, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes.
Isn't the Pentagon suspicious that all of building would blow up?
Or to withhold from the press and the public
I think you're just looking at things for the first time.
the facts they deserve to know.
You've had your whole f***ing life to think things over. What good's a few minutes more gonna do you now?
The facts they deserve to know. They deserve to know. Deserve to know. Deserve to know. Facts they deserve to know.
Those who have achieved unelevated existence, raise your fist. Raise your fist.